There we go. Okay, so tell us your name, where you're from, and the role you played in the opera.
Hi, my name is Matthew Mayfield. I'm from Alexander, Arkansas, and I had the privilege of playing Rinuccio in this opera.
Okay, great, Matthew. Um, how has the pandemic affected your ability to make music?
That's a tough question. When it comes to, I guess the biggest thing it's affected is just my practice times here. When I was at home in the summer, I was able to practice playing because it was just me and my piano inside of my house because I couldn't leave. But when I got here and we really spotted some of the trouble spots, I had to kind of go into a practice room and fix that, and with the way OBU practice rooms work now, you can't just go into a practice room, you sort of have to sign up for a slot. So every single minute of practice time was more precious than it was before, which I guess kind of motivated me to practice a little bit more.
So this made you think smarter about the way you were working?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I had to think smarter, or else all the stuff that needed to get worked out wasn't going to get worked out, and it would have remained what it was. It would have remained mediocre when it could have been great if I did. Or, well, I think it has turned out great, but it would have stayed not so great if I hadn't have gotten smart.
Are there things about the way you had to change the way you practice and the way you learn music that you're going to use moving forward even after the pandemic is over?
When it comes to the way I learn music, I had to come up with some new ways of learning quicker. I had to kind of learn some new techniques. For one thing, I learned even in like my off times when I'm not in the practice room, if I just listen to the part over and over and over again, that would help me get a better handle on specific parts. Like there's one part where I have to launch to this really quick 16th note thing and a lot of syllables in that short amount of time. That really gave me some trouble, but I started listening to some other people who played Rinuccio in various different productions. So that's definitely something that I'm going to incorporate in my practice time in the future.
Yeah, Matthew, can you just stop for pause for a minute? We'll
Okay.
edit this out. It's okay.
Hey, can you shoot me an email and I'll send it over to Lori Modal and I'll get her to do that. All right, thanks. Bye. All right. Sorry about that.
Yes, if that happens again, Matthew, we'll pause.
Yes, sir.
I'm getting echo again, but we're just gonna plow on. We'll pause. You pick back up again. So you were talking about. I'm trying to remember exactly what you were saying. Back up to, we're talking about ways that you are, that you started doing during this pandemic that you're going to carry over your other practices.
Yes.
Do you want to think of a way to wind that up and we'll edit it in?
So I just started listening to a bunch of different recordings of difficult parts. Like I found various productions of Gianni Schicchi and see how different people who have played Rinuccio have done this part, and I would just listen to that part over and over again, follow it in my music, and it really helped me. So that's definitely something I'm going to incorporate in the future that I learned through this pandemic.
Good, good. Talk about this production in particular. How did your perception of the role before you started learning it? How did your perception of the role differ from how you actually played the character?
Before I started playing it, sir?
Yeah, so the idea of who you thought the character was going to be, and then how you actually performed it. What kind of growth happened there? Can you talk about that process?
When I first got the role of Rinuccio, I wasn't entirely sure about it because I'd never seen Gianni Schicchi before. But as soon as I looked into the role of Rinuccio and saw that he was just this kid who was in love with a girl and would do whatever it takes to marry her, I sort of thought he was just a kid in love and like didn't really care what it took to achieve that love. And really since we started shooting, that concept or that original thought that I had about Rinuccio hasn't really changed. In fact, it was just strengthened the more like I started singing, the more like you, Mr. Briggs, gave us a note, go ahead and start thinking about like why your character is doing what they're doing at the very start. And you told me in particular, even in practice, I needed to be nuts about Loretta. Like everything I do needed to go towards marrying Loretta. And that to me has always been a constant about the character. That's the first thought that I had when I started looking into it. So that really hasn't, so my perception about the character hasn't really changed. It's just been strengthened throughout this whole performance. And I learned different ways that I can express that more, just like physically, like, I know we're not supposed to get too close with quarantine, but, or with this whole pandemic thing, but it was little things just like leaning more towards Melody DuBose, who plays Loretta. It was just little stuff like that that helped convey that more. So my perception hasn't changed, but the techniques I've used to convey that have changed.
Okay, good. What was there anything particular about this approach we took, the way that we shot video, audio first, and then put video to it, and the way we integrated, and the way we shot? Was there anything about that you particularly liked?
I liked how it was pretty much a perfect performance every time. Because I have to get into a higher register than I ever have before. And it was nice knowing that my voice wasn't just going to crack like how it has frequently in practice, and sometimes a couple times during the recording process. But it was good to know that I had a perfect performance, or well, I say perfect because there's no such thing, but I had a solid performance that I could go on no matter what else happened. Like, I know I had a good take on it.
Okay, so the ability to know that there was possible a chance to go back and fix something.
Yes.
So that freed you up a little bit, made things a little easier.
Yeah, it wasn't just like a normal show whenever like you mess up and then you just have to move on. It was good to be able to go back and like say, oh, I can do this better, and then have the opportunity to, because you don't get that in a live performance.
Yeah, that's true. Yes. So that was my next question was: is there anything about this process that you felt it hindered your ability to play this role?
Honestly, the absence of an audience is the only real thing that I can think of, because whenever you're in front of a group of people, you react a different way. It's almost just like, or at least for me anyways, as soon as I see like the crowd or like I hear all the voices out there, my brain switches like, okay, it's go time. So that's definitely been a part that has, I wouldn't say hindered, but it's definitely made things a little bit more difficult. Not having the thrill or the pressure of an audience that like made me, in past performances I've done, like give my absolute best. I still did, and I still feel like I gave everything I have to this. But it's just a different feeling, like going out there in front of an audience versus going out there in front of a camera.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a great observation. So this show is very much an ensemble show and very much about collaboration. How did the inability to actually touch each other or to even be right next to each other, how did that affect the way that you performed your role? You've talked a little bit about that, but just specifically thinking about just the things that you had to change or the things that you felt that you wanted to do and then had to stop yourself. Can you talk about any of that? Maybe a specific moment or something?
Definitely the moments whenever Melody and I launch into those sections like Addio Speranza Bella, whenever Gianni Schicchi or Logan Dooley is reading the will, it was definitely weird not being able to like hold hands or embrace or anything like that, or just like touch each other out of worry or anything like lovers would normally do if they found out like, oh, we have no future together. That was definitely a hindrance because I couldn't do, or we couldn't do exactly what we wanted to do to express like our sorrow and like how our love is basically like on the line, and we're so scared that we're about to lose that. But yeah, that in particular, and the last piano scene, or the last scene, whenever it's just Melody, Logan, and I in the very last moments, it was definitely weird not being able to be close with Melody as we were singing our duets, because that's the last thing that we do, and we had to do it across from each other, across the piano. It was definitely weird not being able to do that side by side. Those are the two that really poke out to me.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's interesting. Oops, dropped my phone. The tools you had to use that you normally don't think about.
Oh, absolutely.
I think we'll be able to use those moving forward, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me get my phone. We'll edit that out. You're gonna edit out a lot of your stuff back there that I'm doing, not that you're doing. So, what would you have liked to have happened in the production that we didn't do?
I can't really think of anything, to be honest. Like, there was nothing I really felt like, gosh, I wish we would have incorporated this, or I wish we would have done this differently. There's nothing really in particular that jumps out to me in that regard, because I thought all the stuff that we really did was more than I thought we were going to be able to do.
Oh, okay. Were you surprised at anything that we were able to do? Can you think of a specific moment?
Absolutely. Whenever we were shooting that part where the doctor's coming in, and we look like we're all just in one straight line because of the camera perspective, but in actuality we're far apart because of social distancing. That by far was incredible to watch. Like going back and watching and seeing like, wow, we actually look like we're close together when we're not.
Yeah.
And it's just cool to watch that scene play out. So it was amazing to see some of the shots that we were able to pull off.
Yeah, did it help to be able to see the shots? I mean, would more dailies have helped or anything like that?
I definitely think it would have been a little bit nicer to like see some of the stuff that we had shot previously, but the moments that we did, I felt really helped us solidify like, oh, hey, what we're doing is actually working. Because yeah. I don't know if anyone else felt this personally, but I felt that, is this actually going to look good? In a lot of the parts that I was doing, or a lot of the parts that we were shooting. So it was nice to see, like, in those moments that we were able to see, it's nice to see, like, hey, what we're doing is actually working and it looks good. It doesn't look bad, it looks really good, actually.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. In closing, I'm going to ask you one more question. If you were able to go back 8 months to just as the pandemic began,
Mm-hmm.
knowing what you know now, is there anything that you would have told yourself at that point?
Calm down. I mean, quite honestly, when I first found out that I was doing Rinuccio and I watched through the entire show, I was like, I have to do that? Just hearing, because I was worried that I was not going to be able to do it vocally, and with this whole pandemic thing, some of the shots that I'd seen in other shows, I was just like, how are we going to do this? And like, how am I going to do this? So I was definitely nervous about the role. So I would just go back and just say to myself, look, you got 8 months and a lot's going to change in 8 months. You're going to mature not only vocally, but as an actor, and it's going to be really good. So it's going to be all right, good. That's probably what I'd say to myself.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to say about the production, or anything you'd like to see put into our video archive of this?
Oh man, I'm glad this was my first opera. I wasn't entirely sure that I wanted to do opera, quite honestly, whenever I was auditioning, if I'm being honest looking back on it. But I auditioned because you, Mr. Briggs, one day were walking in the hallway and you said, "Oh, by the way, Matthew, you have to audition for the opera next year." And I quote, and I was just like, "Yes, sir." And so I signed up for auditions the first chance I got. So I wasn't entirely sure I wanted to do opera at first, but I'm really glad I did because this has been absolutely fantastic. I've grown vocally and I've grown closer with some of my fellow castmates, and I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Well, thank you, Matthew. It's been really great to have you do this. Your first interview.
It's
So
been
it was kind of rough. But yeah, I think this would be great to have all of your voices in at the end of this. And I know I speak for Dr. Brown that we are so grateful for the work you did on this. And I think it's something you should always be proud of.
Oh, absolutely, and
Great job.
I appreciate all the help y'all have given me.
Great, cool.
Well, I admire how everything you're involved in, you bring positivity and a high level of musical commitment, and just, I really appreciate that, because in a world where, like, we don't always as directors know who we can depend on, we know we can depend on you.
Thank you for that.
And that's such a great trait to have as a human being. So any way we can support you in whatever you do, I know we both are here for you any way we can be. And
That means a lot. Thank y'all so
Yeah.
much for that.
Yeah, Dr. Brown, was there anything you wanted to add to go into the video archive of this?
no, I think it was great.
I think you just, yeah.
Pretty much
Matthew,
covered.
this is a great experience. I look forward to what we're going to do next year. We'll see what that'll be.
I'm looking forward to it.
And hopefully we'll get to do it without masks, and yes, you will be expected to audition for it.
That's right. Well, I think some people are going to come back just because of the experience,
Yeah.
which is good.
I hope so. Yeah.
So awesome, man.
Awesome. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
In that video.